I didn't realize that. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you? So I imagine you were also utilizing each other's services,
We
right?
were.
So that was
Yeah.
part of the secret sauce, right? So
Yeah.
get in the door with the other person's thing and then expand from there, because obviously somebody's going to need marketing communications help if they've got you in the door. So that's where Len comes in. So then how did growth happen? I mean, you had all your network and contacts, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the timeline here. All those folks you would have been working with that were just starting out in the 70s
Mm-hmm.
in the distribution side of things. Now they're probably in decision-making roles.
You got
right?
it. They are. Yes. Very, very interesting time. So continuous door knocking.
Yep.
One big door was Cyanamid. And Cyanamid, I loved it because it kind of reflected what had been going on at King Grain. All these young marketing smart people that you still see, Jay Bradshaw, Nevin McDougall, Joe Dales. I mean, I could go on and on. Christine Lajeunesse, Kellyanne McKnight. And they recognized that what they needed was the idea of a partner and outsourcing to a company that could help them on their connections with growers.
Right.
While they spent their time doing what they did really well, which is marketing and production.
Right.
So they put their arms around our business like 100%. And we were offered we couldn't say no, and we obviously didn't say no. They wanted us to be exclusive on the crop protection side, but they really helped us with a strategy of, if you use us as your display model to go out to animal health, to a seed company, to farm equipment, maybe even to banks, and promote your capabilities of, and I don't like using the name call center, but it just kind of helps when you think about it, customer contact center. And I know when we first started our engagement with Cyanamid, we had a lot of dialogue by phone and a lot of meetings in their offices in Markham. They had never come to ours. And I'm like, oh God, what if they want to come? And there's nothing there. Like there's no phones, there's no people, there's, but I think in their hearts, they knew that, but we're just allowing us that time to figure out how we were going to put this business together to support their strategic plans. So Brian had great contact and great resources of finding people to match all of the clients' requirements from a customer contact perspective. So we hired 6, 7, 8 people for our customer contact center for Cyanamid, and lo and behold, they wanted us to be able to provide not only outreach for them, but they wanted us to be able to provide technical response to grower questions. So, and they wanted it across Canada. And so it was a big, big deal. So we created the template, and it became something that we could apply to every other client we had that was outside of that crop protection side of the industry. So over a period of a few years, we were doing those types of services for Cyanamid, Green Cross, Fermenta Animal Health, then Bayer Animal Health, and a lot of project work for companies that Cyanamid would not think was competitive.
Like financial industry.
And on the even healthcare side, we did a little bit of dabbling in pharmaceutical stuff as well. So every time they stuck up their hand and said, Cyanamid, can you do this? Like, do you know anything about rebate programs? No, but we'll figure it out. I mean, we figured it out.
Yeah.
And the folks that we hired out of the University of Guelph, it was a great launching pad for them as well. And many of them I know they're in great roles in other parts of the industry for sure. So Brian did a superb job of making sure we had the quality people that were flexible and trainable and resourceful and just had that get her done kind of attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't imagine. Like, you look back on it now. One, you come out of the school. One, it teaches you great customer service skills because you got to talk to how many people in a day. Two, the amount of information you're absorbing as a sponge that you don't even know is valuable until later on, right? When you get to access that information. But yeah, it's just like reading a book or multiple books a day on information, right?
Yeah, because you're involved with a company that's just making it up as they went along, awesome. Really entrepreneurial. I mean, to the point that we didn't have a kitchen in that office. And so we had a coffee maker and we had a bucket of mugs, and somebody had to take the bucket home every night to wash the mugs.
I love it. I love it. Well, you went from you didn't go from the garage to the office to then from whatever went on from there, but you went from the living room, right? So yeah, that was your garage setting. Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you're growing leaps and bounds. You've got lots of business coming in. You're learning that piece of business. Then others came calling. How did it get to where others were interested in your business from hey, we like what you've got here, we want to purchase you?
Yeah, that was I love this because we were seeing a lot of ag data around the hallways of Cyanamid, ag data based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, with offices as well in the UK at the time. Mm-hmm. And they were servicing Cyanamid basically globally from a grower redemption reward perspective, and had all these sophisticated systems in place to be able to manage those programs, of which when we did one at Agline, it was like, get out the checkbook for a cert and, write out back to the guy in, in North Battleford and put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. And so we started running into people from ag data in the halls of Cyanamid's office, and they were getting, then it was like the mailing list was becoming the database. Mm-hmm. So that was hot news on the press. It was like, the late 90s, and everybody wanted a database. Well, I didn't even know what the heck they were even talking about. But anyway, we sat in a lot of meetings with a lot of smart people that had a lot of experience at ag data, that knew how to do this stuff and had the technology. Yeah. I should actually back up just a little bit here for a minute, because I had a life-altering moment in 1998. And that was the year I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was on my own in this business because Brian had decided, we've done enough of this together. I'm going to just focus on my ag placement. Yep. I bought him out, and that was very fine. We still used his services. Yeah. And so in that time frame, it was all good news, because guess what? I'm still here, and that was 25 years ago.
Yeah. And but you were at the peak of your peak. Success as a business. Yeah.
Yeah. And my staff was young, and they're vulnerable, and they were worried, and, it was very worrisome. So I was very fortunate. I only had to have 26 shots of radiation. And I think it was a good timing. The cancer clinic was in Hamilton, so I just go to the office and then drive down there and then come back to the office. And I think I didn't stop long enough to think about it enough, which was awesome, because you don't want that to run your life. You don't need that in your face every day. Yeah. So this is shortly after when we started having little cups of tea with the folks from Ag Data. And so in 99, they came up in their airplane. And we went out for dinner and we chatted, and the two partners, Verl Purdy and Jim Thompson, we just got along real well. And they said, we could just help each other. We could align and just go out and wave each other's flags. But, really, we would prefer it if you would agree to just buying your business and you stay on as managing director.
Yep.
They have an office in Newmarket, a business called Target Insights, which was really focused on statistical analysis and market research. And what they wanted to do was close that, merge us together, and become a new company in the Canadian, with a Canadian footprint on their behalf. So the timing was perfect. It worked for staff.
Yeah.
You know, you could see that there was, I mean, it was scary for them too, because they didn't know this company, and they had to really trust me that things would work out okay. And
Right.
it did. I mean, you do lose people and not everybody buys in. But we grew from there like super quickly, like from 14 staff to 40. Like it felt like almost over.
Yeah, it's a different business too, right? You get into those increments of 15 to 30 and beyond.
Yeah. We stayed in the same office space. In fact, on Holiday and Drive, we ended up having every unit on that second floor of that building for many years.
Awesome.
We kept knocking down walls and not telling the landlord. I always thought, ask for forgiveness later always works best.
The things you could never do now.
No, there's lots and lots. So that's kind of where we got to. This injection of know-how and technology and resources really took us to another level, and hiring very smart people into the business that made everybody, Jim and Verl and I, look really good. They were the people behind all of this that had walked the halls of our clients, which I've never done in terms of working for them. And that was probably not a good thing. We needed people that, had those strengths, that to be able to align with them and understand what their business objectives were. So out of all of that came Ag Collect, sales reporting tool, BPI, business planning initiative, market share reporting. We ended up purchasing, and I led an acquisition of an animal health market share reporting company called Impact Vet, and merged that company. They were located in Montreal, put that together. Those items are still and continue to be industry standards. I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't even know what I was looking at today, because they've morphed and changed into so many more sophisticated items for the industry to utilize.
And did you stay the whole 3 years as managing director, or how did that play out?
Yeah, I stayed. Yes, I stayed and stayed and stayed.
Okay.
Probably I stayed too long.
Well, that's a good sign that it was the right thing too, because you see a lot of those go where it's get me out of here after a year, because it just happens. So that's a good sign that you wanted to stay and they wanted you to stay. Well,
that's a good point about wanting to stay, because they let us do whatever we needed to do as long as we were meeting targets, and we were far and away over and above their wildest imaginations. So yes, it was a good gig until 2011, and then the entire ag data business was sold to a VC.
Mm-hmm.
And when you looked at the personnel chart, my name was not on it.
Got it.
No.
So something tells me there's a question there. So what does Joan do after that? I hope you took some time.
Joan went home and hid under her bed.
Oh, didn't need to hide under your bed.
Well, it was it was just not a fun time.
Yeah. So
it's always, I mean, it happens to everybody who hasn't something happened to. So that's fine. So anyway, did that kind of, I had a pretty stringent non-compete too. So I just wasn't in the mood for fighting that. I mean, I was going to be 60 years old. What's the point in that?
Yeah.
After a couple of years, though, I did reconnect with a couple of guys from Charlotte, North Carolina. Everybody's from
Everyone's
Charlotte.
from Charlotte.
Yeah. So these two guys were partners in a business called Techniques.
Yep.
And they had both worked for Ag Data. In fact, they both worked for Ag Data in the UK and then came back to the Charlotte office in the late 90s. And they decided to leave to pursue their strategy, which was not collecting the data, but what do you do with it when you get it?
Analytics.
And demand creation.
Yep.
And so they had a nice business in the US, and they were looking to put a footprint up in Canada. They were getting some feelings from their various network and customers who had leadership that had come from the US that was now in Canada, saying, we want you to do some stuff up here. So we got together, and I really didn't think that I was wanting to get back in that deeply. I didn't need to, but I didn't think I did. But then after about a year, I thought, well, okay, good. So let's just keep this going. Yeah. So and they were agreeable to pursuing a footprint here. So we, instead of having this big storefront and spending a whole lot of money, and we outsourced a lot of the activities that we provided to the crop protection industry in Canada from a demand creation perspective, and full circle back to the customer contact center strategy. So we not only provided that service here for clients in Canada, but also to Techniques in the US to their client base.
Oh, awesome.
So it was a real cross-border type of thing. And again, accessing great talent out of the University of Guelph. They weren't working directly for Techniques, but they were part of we were a team, and we were part of a business together, which worked out very, very well. Yeah.
Awesome. So 2.0 goes well again. Now, so then you were an employee. Did you have business interests in that as well?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
I was a partner in the Canadian Techniques business. Yes. There were three of us. Yeah.
So you did jump in with both feet.
I did. Might as well, right?
Right. Well, it becomes part of your DNA as well, right?
So.
Yeah.
I think it does. Yeah. I think I'm a bit of a risk taker. I don't think of myself really that way, but when I look back over time, that's there. And I don't know where it came from, but why not? Because again, you can just fall down and stand up and wipe yourself off and keep going and just, keep reinventing yourself.
Well, you hear over and over again, not to go too far down a bunny trail, but it's especially entrepreneurs, right? It's like, if you go back, they weren't necessarily the school systems didn't match up with their learning style, right? And then similar story, right? It's like you didn't necessarily know what path you were. That could have been a number of things. It could have been the way you learn. It could have been just at the time, at that age, and your ability to absorb whatever or take in information. And then over time, how that grows. And then you see all these entrepreneurs be very successful. And then, it's not the traditional way that they came up through an education system, et cetera, right? So,
sure.
You're another example of that.
For sure. I think so. Yeah. I wonder what would happen if I went back to school again. I don't know.
Well, going back to school is probably teaching. So,
okay.
Right? I mean, and have you done some of that? Have you done any, I know you did the pesticide course, but have you done any professorships or taught any courses along the way here?
No, I haven't. And I've been thinking about it. I just haven't pulled the trigger on anything. Yeah.
Right. I imagine you've been asked probably before.
Yes. Yeah. I'll probably take advantage of some of those opportunities in the next while. I think I'd like to do that. I do mentor a couple of women who've kind of struck a little bit of a glass ceiling in the industry. strictly on a just, let's chat, who have you been talking to? How might you approach a position in a company, or thinking about striking out on your own and what that would mean. So I like that kind of coaching for sure.
Now, do you, is that a formal thing that you've got somewhere that folks can find information on, or is it mainly your network that knows that you do that?
Yeah, it's just mainly been people that have said, "Oh, have you talked to Joan?" kind of thing.
Okay.
I do have on LinkedIn. I just changed the name. It's Knowlton Consulting. I mean, again, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I can do a lot of different things, but you start thinking about the things you like doing as you get a little bit older, rather than things you just, are drudgery. If you know what I mean.
Nope, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome that you're doing that, and I think those that are working with you are going to obviously benefit from that a great deal. Let's go back a little bit. So from techniques, where do you go from techniques to where you are now?
So in and around 2018, Techniques merged with Access Inc. And they were located in Raleigh. So that merge occurred. And then very soon after that, they became an organization that TELUS was very interested in, as they were starting to put together their plans to become TELUS, an arm of their business, I should say, to be TELUS Agriculture.
Yeah. TELUS
Ag. So lots of dialogue with a lot of people, a long process, but the sale happened in 2019. So the entire organization, US and Canada, was acquired by TELUS Ag.
And look at them now. Yeah. That's so yeah, that I guess was that you were right there at the start of all that as well.
Yes.
That's awesome.
At the ground floor of all those discussions, for sure. It was very interesting. Mm-hmm.
You do need to write a book.
Yeah, okay. I do. Yeah.
You just take this, and that could be like the framework, right? The outline of everything. Plug
and
that into
4 pages of notes.
Well, yeah. See, you've got the outline done. You've got the outline done.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you've mentioned it a number of times, but I think through some of the struggles you've had being a female in this industry, period, let alone the era you were coming up and then starting your own business, et cetera. And then now full circle being able to mentor those in today's environment on how to get further. But I mean, what were some of those things that maybe you thought of or didn't think of? And maybe that was part of it, is you didn't think of those things when, you were 20 and just driving on and doing what you needed to do and taking risks. And, you went to the one business, it didn't work out. So then you got involved with King Grain, who definitely took you under their wing, et cetera. So talk through maybe some of that for those that might be listening, that just some tidbits or best practices from your perspective on what might help them. Yeah.
You kind of hit the nail on the head when you said maybe you just didn't think about it, because I just didn't. Like, I don't know why. I mean, I grew up in a very, feminism and rallies and, burning of bras. And I grew up in that, but it just didn't occur to me, because no one was treating me in a way that I felt that I was lower than they were, or that I couldn't do what they could do. It was I found the industry's always been super respectful of that. I mean, I think I'd like to see more women in the boardroom of these large ag companies, and they're not. And I don't necessarily think it's because, we don't want a woman in here. I just think maybe a lot of women don't think that they can do that, but they can. But as you and I were talking when our first little get together, you see a lot more women in very high level marketing roles. And that's
absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome to see. Probably more in the US than here, but then there's more activity in the US than here as well.
Correct.
So, I don't think it's a good idea for women to make a big deal of all this stuff. Just, if you're good at what you do and you can actually produce to a level that an organization recognizes your skill, then I don't think you're going to be turned away.
Well, I think part of it is that looking back, you mentioned you did have a couple instances where you went and so when you got transferred in one of your first roles, right? And then that's why you called up folks at King Grain, right? So I think you didn't necessarily, you recognized that fairly like immediately.
Right away.
So therefore you changed your environment.
Yeah.
Right. And found a path that worked for you. So I think that's learning too, which I think if folks listen to this, know you, or you sounds like you're on LinkedIn, which I know you are. So I'd say reach out to you for these types of things. Cause I think it's situational too, right? It's situational. I think you are very good at, hopefully, I know you'd be able to help a lot of people in that regard of working through those things for sure.
Yeah, well, I really, I'm open to all of that for sure. I'd love to do things like that. Absolutely.
Now, so now I'm gonna completely switch topics. There's got to be the stories that we can't put in the book. There's got to be something that's slightly maybe just pushing the limits of PG. I know some of the folks you hung out with or in your career. There's got to be some things that maybe you can share. And if you can't, obviously, we'll cut this part.
Well, I can't share any of those, but there is one story that just like is probably more cute than anything else. But before I sold the business, and we were a real tight team in our office space in Cambridge, and there were 10 or 12 of us at that time. These young kids coming out of Guelph, and I just love that. Like, they were just so enthusiastic, and we had just hired a real lovely young man from St. Mary's. You will probably know who he is. And I remember the day he came for his interview, and we could look out into the parking lot. His mom had driven him, and he had come for an interview for a call center role. And so we're looking out the window, and we offered him the job that day, and he went downstairs and he was hugging his mom. And I just thought, this is the best moment. So he just was that kind of young guy, just like right off the farm.
Yeah.
Well, just a sweetheart. So one of my staff they were all getting married. They were all like in their mid-20s and getting married. And of course, we were all invited to all their weddings. And so one very key player in the business, Jose, she was being married at a lovely spot in Burlington, and this huge hall, and 300 people, and the tables and the decorations, and we were spread between two or three tables, and the table my husband and I were at with some of the staff was on one side of the room, and on the other was another 2 or 3 tables, and this young man, he didn't have a date, but he was there and like rocking it on the dance floor. And so Jose was the young woman's name who was being married, and her husband stood up to do a speech. And so all of a sudden we're sitting at our table and my cell phone rang. And like, how embarrassing is that? First of all, right? You're at a wedding reception. And so I said to my husband, oh my God, because our daughter was home with a babysitter. I said, I better take this.
Yeah.
So a very formal affair. Everybody's long gowns, long skirts, etc. I'm on the far side of the room of this reception hall. I get up, I start walking. It felt like a mile across this dance floor to go out to take this call. And my skirt fell down to my ankles.
Captured on video.
And that young guy that worked for me, his face, I could look at his face and I'm like, this kid is never going to look at me in my eyes again. And he struggled with that. It was just hysterical. So anyway, that was my moment in time. I keep in touch with all these people from those days, and they will never forget this. And for Christmas that year, they gave me suspenders. So
that's awesome.
It was
so
needless to say, my dance card was full the entire night.
Awesome.
So that's kind of outside of the industry kind of stuff, but that's probably one of the only ones I could really tell. Other than there was lots of fun parties with lots of fun people, and just a great time to be learning in the industry and to be accepted as part of the industry for sure.
It was a unique time. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of folks that kind of circle from the same sort of backgrounds, and I got to witness it as, Len Hawkins' son. So I was at a bunch of those parties, was told to go to my room, but I was at a few of those early on. And it's funny when you get into these with the vision of it, I can't tell a lot of those stories.
Yeah, right.
Right. And you're lucky in one way. Yes, cell phones are around, but if it was like today, you'd have even more fans.
Yes,
because that would be posted on all sorts of socials, right?
Yes, right. Great.
Absolutely. Well, we have more than monopolized your time this morning. I can't, and I think I didn't even get to like a number of other questions we've got here, but I think we wove in a lot of things that I hope people really. I learned a lot today. I mean, I knew your story, but I didn't know your story. Right? It's this has been incredibly helpful. So, and maybe we do because I do have a bunch here. Maybe we do a second version here at some other point. Would be awesome.
Yeah, this has been really a great experience for me too, Rhett. Thank you very much. And by the way, you're the Dax Shepherd of the Ag Industry podcast now. Right?
I'll take that. I will take that. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
No, very easygoing conversation. You know how to get people talking and bringing out some of the things that I'd never even thought about for a million years. So
I was just with my family over the weekend, and they said, good conversations. You got to know the person at least a little bit, right? So the vision of this is not for me to do all these. I hope there's other Dax Shepherds out there, because the vision is like, if you want to do somebody and do that, you can do it under the platform of Aggie Allstars, because I think it does help when the person knows the person a little bit. It's not meant to be Rhett Hawkins' podcast. It's meant to be Aggie Allstars. So I wouldn't even consider myself an all-star. So others can interview others. So I hope maybe some people take us up on that. That'd be awesome.
I hope there's more. I look forward to seeing more. This has really been a great experience. Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. Well, thank you.